Okay, today's lesson is on 7-6, adding and subtracting polynomials. And the big key for today is that you need to remember what makes things like terms. Because we've learned in Algebra 1 that in order to add and subtract expressions, you have to have like terms. So when we're dealing with polynomials, we want to continue to focus on like terms. And just as a review, like terms are only terms that have the exact same variable component, not just the same variable. So I see these two things both have an m, but this is an m to the first power and this is an m to the second power. And when we're adding together, we cannot add together two things unless their variable component is exactly the same. Okay, so we're going to start out with something like this, just simplifying a polynomial, and you need to be able to locate like terms. Well, the like terms are expressions that have the exact same variable component. So in this case, 2m squared and 6m squared and our two constants of 8 and 12 are alike. So we add those together. So 2m squareds plus 6m squareds gives us 8m squareds. Okay, we're adding those together. This doesn't become m to the fourth because we are adding. You can always replace a variable like m squared with a noun. So if you replace m squared with the word basketball, this would be like having 2 basketballs plus 6 basketballs gives us 8 basketballs, m squared. It doesn't become 8 basketballs. Notice up here 2m has no term to add with it, so that just remains, and then 8 plus 12 is 20. So the first part of the lesson is just going to be simplifying and adding expressions. So here's the first 3 that you need to do. So you can pause the video once I have these written, simplify these, and be prepared to show those when we get back to class. Okay? Alright, we're going to go on. Now we're going to talk about adding polynomials together, and the problems would look something like this. So 2x squared minus x plus x squared plus 3x minus 1. So we're adding these together, and you can write it out horizontally, or your textbook also sometimes writes them out vertically. So what they would do is they would take an expression like this, and the polynomial they're adding to it, they would rewrite it where they're lining up each of those terms on top of the other, so that you can very easily locate like terms. So this would become 3x squared. 3x minus x is 2x minus 1. Okay, pretty easy. Alright, the next one, just want to be careful as it gets trickier with variables that you are careful with the variables as well. So in this case, 2ab and negative 2ab are like terms. Has to have the exact same variable component. So in this case, these are additive inverses. They're opposites, so they're going to cancel. And we're left with the solution of b plus a. Okay? So this is the next problem I'd like you to write down and solve. And I'll zoom in on it here. So if you can pause the video once you get a good picture of that, pause the video, write this down, add like terms, and simplify. Okay. Alright, the next step is we're going to go into subtracting polynomials. So if you saw something like this, let's see, a to the fourth minus 2a. And if we're going to subtract this entire polynomial, we've talked about this a lot before, but since this subtraction sign is outside of the parentheses, that's really meaning that we have this coefficient of -1 that has to be distributed to everything inside here. In other words, when you subtract an entire value in parentheses, all of these things become opposite. So we have a to the fourth minus 2a, but then the positive 3a becomes negative 3a to the fourth. We are subtracting a negative 3a, so that becomes positive 3a. And we are subtracting a positive 1, so that becomes negative 1. So when you add like terms, a to the fourth minus 3a to the fourth is negative 2a to the fourth. Negative 2a plus 3a is just an a, and the minus 1 remains. Okay. So I'd like you to try these three problems. 2x squared minus 3x squared plus 1 minus x squared plus x plus 1. So please write down and solve that one. And solve this one. And the last one is right here. So I'd like you to solve each of these. Remember that this subtraction sign has to apply to everything in the parentheses. Okay. All right, and that is it. We will see you tomorrow. Please make sure all these sample problems are done and complete.